they're not comfortable with diversity. They're not
Well,
comfortable with uh, uh, anything other than heterosexuality. They're not comfortable with a lot of the things that we champion as maybe liberals or progressives over here.
mm,
And so what he did is he just kept putting that out there, and it's like,
yeah,
okay, I might, I may have this tariff thing going on over here, and people are going to say the prices are going to go up. But if you vote for these people, they're going to kill your babies, and they're going to turn your children into transsexuals, and they're going to do this and they're going to do that,
yeah.
and that is what and that seems to work for him.
That's why I get back to journalists. They let them say those lies and they never correct them. So when you got CBS, ABC, NBC, all these people repeating, and excuse me, not repeating, but not holding these people accountable for
Right.
the bull crap they're saying, then people begin to attach to it, like you said. But for me, I don't think the guy is smart and tactful. I think he's a puppet. I think that him being rich, him growing up being rich, being around people that always say yes and try to accommodate him, I think that he fell into the perfect situation where the GOP says we can use this guy to get all the things we want to get done. They are totally ignoring the bribes, all of this crap. They talked about Hunter Biden taking a $5 million bribe. They're
Right.
not talking about the $6 billion that
Right.
this guy has. They're,
Right.
they're, they're not talking about all the blatant BS that's in front of us.
Right.
And then you got ABC telling The View they need to tone it down on the occupant bashing. I'm like, keep it up. I hope Whoopi double down on it.
I'll just say it like this. I made movies in South Africa. I've been in South Africa. I sent your
sent my
son
sons to South Africa.
to South Africa
Yeah.
to talk to people that I know who still live there. There's no white genocide. Okay? There's not a genocide happening. There is crime, as there is all over the world.
Yeah.
But it's not about killing off white people. This is just straight up bull.
Journalism has failed us. Supposed to be the guardians of truth, not the case at all. It's all about the advertisement clicks, all of that stuff. And when you have this guy in here with the people that have the money, those people, CEO of Disney, he's strong conservative. They're just looking at the money they're gonna grab, and the journalists are letting these guys just push the lie. How many times do you have to let this guy say that the other countries are going to be paying the tariffs?
Well,
That
yeah, well, they've tried, but again, what Trump and his team understand is that you just keep saying the lie as many times as you possibly need to, and it'll catch on. One of the things that I really paid attention to recently, having to do with the tariffs, is his meeting with Walmart and some of these other retailers, telling them to eat
the
the
tariffs.
losses. The losses.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah,
I don't know if you I'm sure you probably remember it, but that really got my attention because I remember when we were having the Obamacare ACA conversation before it got passed. And this is why I don't eat Papa John's pizza to this day, because there were a lot of Republican business owners, like the Cavs owner who owns Papa John's, who said, "Oh, if this thing passes, I'm going to have to lay people off
yeah,
and
yeah,
shut
yeah. I
down some
remember that.
stores because
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
going to be able to afford it," which was a
yeah.
blatant out and out lie. And
Right.
nothing like that happened. Okay. There was no talk at that. You never heard, there was no talk, because he would have gotten dragged through the mud for this. There was no
Yeah,
talk during this conversation where President Obama said, "Well, you all are going to have to eat that shit." You
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and,
Yeah,
he didn't say anything. He just said, "Well, we're going to go with this because we're trying to give people the ability to get health insurance. That's what's
right,
important."
right,
And
right.
so I used to live in a country, not that I necessarily champion it, but I used to live in a country where capitalism was king. If the
Yeah.
American president ever told a corporation, you gotta make less money, they would have been dragged in the mud.
Yeah, they
I mean,
would. Yeah,
they
they
can't
would.
even raise taxes because they're going to get that blowback.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
This dude has not only pretty much essentially raised a tax, but he's done something worse than raising taxes, in my opinion. You
What's
know,
that?
he has messed up supply chain lines. He has
Yes.
made other countries not want to trade with us. All
Yes.
this stuff over this tariff BS, and on top of that, he has the nerve and the media and the populace at large are allowing this guy to tell our
Yeah.
companies don't make as much money.
Hmm.
We're monopoly. This is a monopoly game we are playing over here. What are you talking about?
That's
You know,
exactly right. Yeah. That's
and that's why
exactly
I'm like,
right.
how are you getting away with this? So
Mm.
I don't understand that. This is to me, especially as a Republican,
Mm.
that was a comment that, maybe at one time a Democrat might have made, but as a Republican, but definitely as an American president, I can't believe that he's actually telling these companies, you need to, like, just eat eat this loss. It makes no
That was
sense.
funny. Eh, Do you think that's why you now have a situation like you mentioned back then with Papa John's talking about Obama passing the ACA? Do you think that now, instead of talking about their businesses will go under if it passes, now they're talking about this bill goes through? They're actually saying we're going to have to raise your prices.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? But they're not talking
yeah,
about going broke. They're talking
right,
about we're going to stay in place. We're going to stay
right,
here, but
right,
we're going to raise your prices because of these tariffs.
right.
Do you think it might be a change in what they're thinking with doing with the orange guy? Do you think anybody has any like?
Oh, I think it's going to take. Yeah, it is.
Hmm,
It is.
okay.
Now, the one of the reasons why they've given him this much rope, in my opinion, is that they want this tax thing to go through,
Hmm,
and Trump is championing this tax cut for the rich. So they're
right.
like, we can't, like, come down on him too hard until we get this tax break. But once this tax thing goes through, unfortunately, because it probably is going to pass, once
Yeah.
this thing passes, I think all bets are off. And I think a lot of
Hmm,
I don't know what's going to happen. And there have been a lot of times when, I mean, me and many other folks, I thought that it was going to be Trump was going down, and that dude, by gosh, wiggled his
hmm,
way out of the trap. But
hmm,
I think
hmm.
that, this time around, especially since he's, if the Constitution still counts for anything, especially since he's a lame duck president, that
Right.
it's going to be like, you know, F
Hmm.
you, we got to
Yeah.
do something about this guy
Right.
because, um, but the sad part, here's the other sad part, Aaron, but because of what happened during his first, um, term, is that the stuff he's done in the short months, in the, was it 3 4 months,
Yeah. 4 months.
4 months
Yeah.
he's been president, are more impeachable than the stuff he did in the first term.
Way more impeachable. I
And
mean, you took
and
a
and
bribe in front of everybody, the
right,
world.
right,
Yeah.
right, right,
Oh my.
right. But
Yeah.
because these Republican senators had the nerve not to vote for impeachment twice on him,
Hmm.
which were legitimate, both in my assessment too. And I say that
Mine
not
as
because
well.
I dislike him, because they were legitimate. I think they're scared to pull the trigger. No one wants to look like, have pie, you have, mud on their face again.
Hmm.
And I just think when he's talking about, meeting with these, his, his son's doing this business overseas, his family doing business over all these things, and him not returning the Abreu. I know I'm
Yeah.
mispronouncing his
Yeah.
name.
Yeah. Yeah. Not bringing him
Trump
back. Yeah.
bringing
Just
him
totally
back.
ignoring the Supreme Court.
They're still sending some folks away when they were supposed to, like, hold them up. Not not complying with the Supreme Court. All this stuff
They
is
sent some
impeachable.
people to Sudan. They
Right,
sent people to Sudan.
right,
And
right,
they're still doing it You said that you think once this tax bill is complete, do you think it might be a situation where all of these GOP's donors start to say, "Hey, look, we got what we want. Get rid of them"? Do you think that's might be why you're
Well,
thinking that?
I hope so. I
Yeah,
I mean, I would think so. That's what I hope. I mean,
yeah,
but my goodness, man, I hoped that when the Supreme Court was voting on whether he had immunity, that they would that they wouldn't pass that. So I
yeah.
mean, so
That was
so
one of
now,
those dumb votes. That's their arrogance. That's their naivete. They thought that doing that they'll be fine, but in doing so, they actually put this guy in a position where he can just ignore orders for a long time. What he's
right?
doing right now. What?
But
How are they going to enforce that? I
I
mean,
have I look. That's true. I have no idea. I have no
yeah,
idea. But I want to make. You probably have to edit this or something. But I want to make one point while it's still on my mind about Biden. Because I totally agree with you. I have no problem with Biden's term in office. In
mm,
fact, I think that during those 4 years, we got a lot done.
yeah,
I thought he was a good president. Where
I
I have
did
a
as well.
problem with Biden, and I don't know what I'm not going to read Jake Tapper's book, and I don't know what the tone of his final conclusion is from the book. But that situation that he addresses in the book, what I have a problem with is that once he got past the midterms, Biden, that is, got past the midterms, and
Mm,
people started seeing he was faltering, there should have been, it should have been just, look, we are going to have a Democratic primary, and if you win, Joe, you're our nominee again. But
mm-hmm.
the Democrats didn't even have really a primary
No.
until like he dropped out of the race, and then they just gave it to Kamala. He really should have just dropped out and
Mm,
said, "I'm going to be and he doesn't have to tell anybody is for any other reason other than I want to spend some time with my family. So from
mm,
here on to now on, we're going to have a primary, and they should have had Kamala, Gavin Newsom, and Shapiro have a do whatever, run, have a primary, and I think things might have been a little better.
I have a different take on everything. I'm in the minority. I understand what
Okay,
everybody says on that, but I think we have to be more tactful on our side. And what I mean by tactful, right now, as I stated, everything under his administration, even after the midterms, ran smooth. We got
right,
so much done. So even if that was the narrative being pushed by the media, just constantly focus on his mental acuity, just kept pushing it and pushing it. So everybody else started focusing on it. But what they didn't focus on was the fact that he was getting shit done. See, me, I'm looking at policy. If that orange guy was getting shit done that benefited everybody, I wouldn't have an issue. If
right.
he wasn't such a racist, I wouldn't have an issue. But this guy is effing up. And when I was looking at Biden, I was saying, okay, everybody, let him win. Stay behind him. Tell everybody F what you're saying about him like they do for the orange guy. Stay behind him. Win. And then 2, 3 months in, go ahead and resign and
That was
let
I
Kamala be in place. That was
wait.
my reasoning.
Okay, that was yeah. I think that's what they were thinking. That was my thinking until
Mm,
that dude like walked into the ring with Trump on the debate. That dude came in there like Michael Spinks, dude. He came in there and he got dusted, and it wasn't like and Trump. He just could not. He's doing what I'm doing now. He just could not even put a sentence together that
mm,
sounded good. That was the
mm,
problem. Then it became blatantly obvious. It was like there. I mean, this is my recollection. Okay.
mm.
He challenges Trump to a debate, does so with gusto. I'll be there. You're going to be there. Challenges him to a debate. I'm like, yeah, let's do this. I
Yeah,
was
he didn't
excited
show
for
up.
that.
He didn't show up. Yeah,
Man, dude, it wasn't he didn't show up. It wasn't like he had a bad night. It wasn't like that.
yeah.
It wasn't like that. It wasn't like he went like one for, it wasn't like Steph Curry was off that night. It wasn't like that.
Hmm.
It was like,
It was like you tore your Achilles and you just couldn't play. That's the way I looked at it. And
Wait,
there was one moment where Biden's just looking at him like, I can't believe the crap you're saying. But instead of being able to come back with a retort, and we know that Biden isn't the greatest debater, but you don't need to be a great debater to go against that orange guy. Just counter his
it was
facts.
worse. It was
He was out of it. Yeah.
if like last night Clyde Frazier said, "Give me the ball. I got this," and it was like,
Well,
and
Clyde would at least play defense, but yeah.
no, he wouldn't have. Clyde, he wouldn't have. I mean, he would have tried to. That would have been made. That would have been worse. It would. I mean, I'm just saying. My man was just he. It made it very obvious everything that had been alleged because of his age and because of kind of the way he was walking and that kind of stuff. Dude was old. Look,
He's old. Yeah.
he's old and looked old. And while I was all on the team and down for it, and I was ready for the plan to be exactly what you just stated, exactly, because I think that a Joe Biden that was maybe 4 or 5 years younger would have been the ticket, would have been just fine. He would have beaten Trump, I believe. But once he got out there, and you can't allow, unfortunately, with our electorate, you can't allow someone like Trump to clown you. That's what kind of culture we're living in today. You can't go out there and get clowned by Trump, because if you do, it's going to be what it was, and what it was not good. The thing that gets me a little frustrated and upset is that I think she ran, under the circumstances, the best campaign that you could run.
Yeah.
I mean, I think she did a fantastic job under the circumstances. I don't know what else she could have done. I know there's some other things that could have been done by people around her, Democrats, that is. I don't know if they really full-throatedly got behind her like they should have.
Yeah. And, everything that you're saying has teeth. And once again, I'm going back to what if it was on the other side? Because right now we're seeing it on the other side. This orange dude and the media, once again, they talked all that about Biden, and they're talking about him again now because of Tapper's book. Let's focus on the guy in the office that is taking bribes. And I've seen it before. I've seen how dementia begins to take over.
Yeah.
And it's doing that to him.
Right.
I lived with that. It's doing that to him.
Oh, yeah.
But we're not talking about that. We're not talking about the craziness. We're not talking about how insane his cabinet is.
Yeah.
But we want to talk about Biden again.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree. I mean, it was bad. It was I know when you write a book, I mean, Jake Tapper didn't just write this book last week. I mean, I'm sure he had started it probably before the election, even. But I understand why I would have canceled him. I'm sure Kimmel canceled him because he didn't want to do exactly what you said. He doesn't want to talk about Biden while this guy is doing the stuff that he's doing.
Look, before we finish, man, I want to ask you about the playoffs so far. And one of the things I want to ask you, the other night, SGA, I'm watching OKC, I'm watching Timberwolves, and I'm looking at some of the fouls they were calling, when SGA is going to the hole. I saw 4 to 5 that were not fouls. And I don't like arguing about the rest. My whole philosophy is adjust to how they're calling it. But there was one particular play, Jaden McDaniels is guarding him, and they showed it over, and Jaden McDaniels got his hands to himself. But SGA jumps into him a little bit, and they called a foul. Right. The NBA has made the people in charge of the NBA, the rules committee, they're making it impossible for somebody to play defense. And it pissed. Well, I know I keep saying I'm the angry black man today. Yeah. All right?
Yeah. I think I agree that there is a problem. I don't know what the solution is, because if you talk about now, I didn't watch the whole game last night,
Mm.
but I did see the fourth quarter and overtime.
Yeah.
And while the game was exciting, that game was like almost the complete opposite. There were fouls on every play.
Yeah.
I was like, and don't get me wrong, I don't mind that. I don't.
Yeah.
I kind of like physical ball better than
Yeah.
the touch
Yeah.
foul ball. But
Yeah.
you can't have the Western Conference be like touch foul. SGA goes to the line,
Yeah.
and then like last night, the one that jumps out to my mind is when Toppin got that slam and dude's like hanging all over him.
Man, that was supposed to be an and one. You're right,
Yeah,
and it's like they look at the East, and I'm. This is what I'm thinking. They're looking at this rivalry matchup, old
yeah,
school Indiana, New York.
right.
So maybe they're looking at, okay, let's let them play more. Let's let them bang. That game was enjoyable from beginning to end.
It was.
And when the Knicks were up and they were slowly letting the lead go, I'm
Mhm.
like, you guys haven't been watching Indiana. You're
Yeah,
doing exactly what
yeah,
everybody else has done. You
yeah,
got to take them out.
yeah.
And
Well,
and
I
and that's what happened. And they're letting them play.
they're letting them play. I
Yeah.
do like that it was physical, and I did say that Brunson does frustrate me to watch, but he's a great player. He's a great player. But the one thing that they allowed that if you're allowed to play physically against him, he wasn't able to do that last night. At least in the quarters that I saw in the fourth.
Well, he was able to do that at the beginning of the game, but one
Yeah,
thing with the Knicks, they're playing all their guys. They don't have a deep bench. So
right.
Brunson got tired.
He got tired. He
He
got
got
tired,
tired.
but
Yeah.
they were. But who was it? What's the guy's name?
Neesmith.
Neesmith.
Neesmith. Yeah.
Neesmith was on him at half court in his jock, and what Brunson likes to do is he does that herky jerky quick stuff, and he'll get
Right.
a foul. But he wasn't getting that foul yesterday, and he
Right.
was getting stripped. Some of those strips would have been fouls in other games,
Yep.
but
Yep.
they weren't
Yep.
last night. And I wasn't pulling for anybody in particular. I
I
wasn't.
just wanted to see a good game. Yeah.
I want to see a good
Yeah.
game, and
Yeah.
it makes the series more interesting
Mm.
if the Pacers win the first game in the Garden. I mean, so I guess the fan in me kind of wanted Indiana to win last night, especially since they came back and it
Mm.
was the first game and it was in the Garden, and now the Knicks fans are stressed and upset. So this makes a better show.